So when we create this day reference, this holiday day reference, it could actually point to a holiday object, a Thanksgiving object, a Christmas object, or an Easter object. But today can only apply to a Christmas object or anything in its any grandchildren, children or grandchildren it has created. That'll work. But when we try to take this reference and point it at something, we can point it at the parent, but we have to specify that it's pointing to one of its own types. Because at the end of the day, day could be pointing to a Thanksgiving object as well as it could be pointing to an Easter object. We don't know what's happened before that line of code. So that is why when I say today is equal today, I have to do a cast. And cast is to be a Christmas. Which is what this slide is trying to tell you. So at the end of the day, this is called a narrowing conversion. Oh, it's said right there. So I'm going to highlight that word right there. I missed that. Now it says here that the widening conversion is most useful. It's more versatile. You can do a lot more with it. When you create a reference to a child object, it's more limiting. It can only really point to itself and any of its own children or grandchildren. An object reference can be used to reference any object or to refer to any object. An array list is designed to hold object references. So this is an example of polymorphism in a nutshell. We're able to put any kind of object in an array list. Remember that object is the parent of all. So it is the type of object being referenced. The type of object being referenced, not the reference type, that determines which method is invoked. Suppose holiday class has a method called celebrate, and the Christmas class overwrites it. So I'm going to go back to my document. So now we know we have a method called celebrate available to us here, and then it is overwritten in the Christmas class. That's what they're trying to say. Now consider the following invocation: day celebrate. If day refers to a holiday object, it invokes the holiday version of celebrate. But if it refers to a Christmas object, it invokes the Christmas version. So you have to be super careful. We are in a minute going to play around with some code after we start watching what Margaret has to show us. And these two slides are kind of bad. All right. Inheritance via interface. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear her. You'll find out in a minute. Okay, before we get started with the Martha videos, you're going to love Martha. I should stop talking her up because you're probably all going to hate her. Margaret. Oh, now you guys messed me up. Okay, I want to talk about one more thing. Polymorphism via interface. So just like we had public class pet, let's say we create an interface. Implement poly for polymorphism. Okay, so somewhere in our code, we have an interface, poly, and let's say we have a method, public void, hi Margaret. So in implementing the poly interface, I know somewhere in the pet class that I have implemented this method, hi Margaret. Now, just like we are able to create a pet reference, and that pet reference could point to a dog object, a cat object, or a bird object. We can do the same thing with an interface name. So in other words, what we can do in Java is I can create a poly reference. Poly int interface. No, I can't call her that. Poly, what should I call it? Bob. So now in my pet hierarchy, we had dog, cat, and bird, right? Now we remember, because we all have really good memories, that you can never create an interface object, right? Never create an interface object. But here I'm creating an interface reference. So if somewhere in my code I said bird B is a new bird, and I said dog D is a new dog, or I said cat C is a new cat, the poly interface, we're going to assume that it was coded in the pet class. I'm going to spell it wrong. Assume that's been done. So that means in my driver program, after I've created this reference, these lines of code will be completely fine. I can say Bob equals B, or I could say Bob equals D, or I could say Bob equals C. Because we've implemented the interface, I can use that reference to point to any class of object, any object from a class in the hierarchy. I could also say pet, P is a new pet. And because I said that we implemented that method in this class here, then I could easily say Bob equals P as well. So that's your little introduction to polymorphism. And now we're going to switch gears, and we're going to watch a few videos from Margaret.